This is a series I call Getting a Grip. We're getting a grip together. So, hello. Welcome to Monday, February 16th. I'm glad that you're here so we can talk for half an hour about what the heck we're going through in the United States of America. Today is the anniversary of the murder of Alexei Navalny. So when more people get here, we'll talk about that a little bit more and what his life represented. And we mourn the loss of that beautiful soul who stood up for fighting corruption, destroying corruption in Russia. He had a lot of Russian people really appreciated him. So hello. So I thought we would talk a little bit about America's moral compass and where it stands today. So I like that term moral compass because I think that we all are aware to some degree that we have a moral compass. And a nation that is exhibiting that they don't want to put that on display for the rest of the world to see is a nation that is failing in a lot of ways. So let's talk about what we need to do to get it back. What do we need to do to get our bearings, to get our moral compass back going, we'll say north, right? Going like the North Star guides us. Hello. It takes a while for people to see that I'm on, so I'm just sort of dragging out the topic, which is our moral compass and where we stand as a nation in terms of how we regard one another, whether we regard one another in general with dignity and respect, or whether we just sort of override that. Today, it doesn't happen very often, but my doorbell rang and I went down. I had the initial, I'm right in the middle of something, but then I went downstairs and it was somebody who's campaigning for to run for office. And the guy was like, this candidate is anti-ICE, and sounded like this candidate was on the up and up. So I said, sure, fine, that's great. And I signed I think he needed to collect signatures. And I've actually done that before, jumping into a race for city council way late. I didn't get the required signatures, but I recognized how difficult that is. If I had been somebody that just assumes that people are awful and I don't want to be bothered by people because they're awful, I might have just ignored that person that came to the door, or I might have had a nasty attitude, right? But I just make an effort, and I think we all do here, to stop. And more, I think we're going to be doing this, to stop when somebody, people need to collect signatures when they're campaigning for office, and it's not an easy thing to do nowadays. And it's easier for everybody if we just stop and just decide how we're going to approach somebody being at the door or somebody that needs to reach us making a call. Because if we don't know who it is, if it's not somebody who's real familiar to us, we tend to go into this kind of an overboard reaction of, I'm not going to like this person. I'm not going to like what's going on here. They're going to try to make me do something I don't want to do. They're going to have me sign something or buy something that I don't want. And, in terms of our moral compass, that might not seem like a moral issue, but, we decide where we set our moral compass. So it might not be like a moral issue, but when it comes to deciding how we'll regard one another, and that's including strangers, we kind of set the direction. I've heard that Albert Einstein once said one of the most fundamental questions is it's so important that we ask ourselves just to kind of see where we stand. and our perception of the world is, do I believe that I live in a friendly universe or an unfriendly universe? Now that we see what it's like to have to put it very mildly, a MAGA party, a Republican Party that got infected with MAGA, we see what it actually is to have a display of not treating other human beings with dignity and respect, because they put that on display in full living color every day, all the time. So I think that when we see that type of thing happening, I think it's natural to self-reflect. When we find that so disturbing, it shows us where our moral compass is. And we do find it disturbing if we're normal. Normal meaning we treat other people the way that we would like to be treated. One of the things that we have to bring back in this country is telling the truth. We need to see that in the public discourse. And that's a big ask nowadays, unfortunately, to tell the truth. And if you just joined us, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. If you just joined us, I'm remembering a couple of things that Alexei Navalny, it's a hard last name to say, a couple of things that he would say. First of all, and I've mentioned this many times before, Alexei would say about Putin, and he observed him very closely all the time, and he tried to dethrone Putin. He said he never stops lying. Putin never stops lying. Everything out of his mouth is a lie. And guess who learned from Putin? We don't have to wonder about that too much. And the other thing that Navalny told us to do to fight authoritarianism is to always tell the truth, to keep telling the truth, to not stop telling the truth. And Alexei was in way more extreme circumstances than we are in the United States. Putin had been dug in for a very long time. Putin had been corrupting Russia for a very long time. He was KGB and knew all the ins and outs of how to manipulate and spy on people and how to get his way through abject corruption and heinousness, and how to invade a sovereign nation and just rain holy hell on them constantly. Russia didn't have a constitution like we have. When we tell the truth, when we speak up, then when we speak up against the government, then we are exercising our First Amendment right. I don't think that Russia has a First Amendment and a constitution. So when Alexei Navalny said, keep telling the truth, that's our best defense. Keep always telling the truth. And we don't know how powerful that is. The fight that we're in right now involves hitting it again and again and again and again and again and again. Just keeping on, plugging away, using the analogy of somebody cutting down a tree for wood for their fire, just hopefully a dead tree. Chopping and chopping and chopping this big tree, chopping, and it might take forever, but eventually you get closer, and eventually the whole thing falls. That's where we are. So every one of those chops is the truth. Let's get our truth-telling chops in. Let's get to a place where we will not stand for being lied to anymore. In our country, we have laws. Our United States Constitution, where is it? This is the law of the land. The fascist regime is trying to tell us that it isn't. You know full well that Drumpf, that's what I'm calling him now by his real last name, has not read this. And yet twice he put his hand on a Bible, or it appeared that he did, and swore to the God he doesn't believe in that he would defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and protect it and defend it and us from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And he is a domestic enemy, influenced by a foreign enemy. The First Amendment is in here. The law of the land is in here. This is what we are basing our form of governing on. But because of years and years and years and piles and piles and piles of corruption and being brainwashed into thinking that we shouldn't talk about politics and losing our civics education, we had no choice really but to just be blinded, especially if we had busy lives. Nobody was talking about it. So this opportunistic infection got in. And along with it goes mistreatment of your fellow human beings. Along with it, they have done their best to normalize being horrid to your fellow human beings. If we have a moral compass individually, and I know that we all do, we might not describe it that way. If we have a moral compass, we are not going to go along with that. Imagine somebody like, I don't know, Pope Leo. Somebody who has an oath to do good things. And you can think of many other people. Somebody who's sworn an oath to do good things. Who just has that in them to have risen to that level, that point. All the working with poor people and helping communities and villages in Peru and all that. The moral compass is set. That's not a question. We have moral compasses that are set because I know everybody here is good and wants this country to have good. So the thing that they're wanting us to buy into is to go against our natural way of being. And our natural way of being is to cooperate and to care for one another. Because as a human civilization, we would not have made it this far if we didn't know how to cooperate with our tribe. We would have all perished if we hadn't helped each other. I talked a few sessions ago about the winter in America. There's a horrible winter during the American Revolution. I don't remember the year, 1780 something. That I don't even know how those troops made it through, but they hung together. A lot of them did die because the weather was so unforgiving. So we're wired for cooperation. That's how we've made it this far. And the cooperation does require a moral compass. But that should be natural. So the regime is trying to make us do something that's very unnatural. And now that brings me to the topic of the concentration camps. I don't even know that I would say it's our moral compass that will stop this. It is that, but it's even beyond that. It's our sense of knowing what happens to other human beings affects all of us. And what happens to our sense of feeling safe is that it gets destroyed in the face of these monsters that are inflicting so much harm on the American people that these goons in our regime here swore an oath to defend and protect. And when we see them exhibiting, putting on full display, hurting us, lying to us, promising to take our taxpayer dollars to the tune of, I think they recently asked for $75 billion more to reinforce ICE and to build these concentration camps. When we see that, I mean, I really do think that the universe, whatever you believe in as a higher power, is telling us and showing us something that, unless we are monsters too, that we cannot turn our heads away from. Hey, John, Michelle, and everybody. We cannot turn away from this country making plans to build more concentration camps. This has busted through every cell in our body that's moral and that's human. And I don't think many other things can wake us up to the degree with the intensity that this kind of thing is doing. I saw a video clip the other day from a news channel. I don't know where it was, but there were these elementary school kids. They might have been fifth graders, and they were at the bus stop. And they're standing there at the bus stop waiting for the bus to show up. And while they're waiting, ICE shows up. Can you imagine being an elementary school child, maybe a Latino? There were different races, but there were some Latino children there. And ICE shows up at the bus stop, and these guys in war gear pile out of this black SUV. It's intimidating enough for an adult. I mean, adults are intimidating to little children because they're bigger and they have more authority, usually. And these kids scrambled. They went flying. You couldn't believe how fast they could run. I don't know if they got caught. But this one little boy was being interviewed by a news anchor and asked how he felt. Was it New Jersey? You know what I'm talking about. Okay. Thanks, Karen. And they're talking to this little boy. You might have seen this news clip. This Latino boy. And he was sitting there, and the news anchor said, "How do you feel about what's happened?" And the little boy said, "I'm afraid that they're going to come and take my parents." Now, in a normal world, you could say to that child, "That's not going to happen, honey. Don't worry. Don't worry. Well, you're okay. You're safe." You could say that in a normal America, in a sane country. But can you imagine being in elementary school and having to deal with that kind of trauma? ICE and DHS very well could come and take his parents away. Where is our moral compass? If we can just do business as usual in this country, then there'll be more concentration camps and there'll be more ICE raids. So I don't foresee that happening. However, I think we all share the sentiment. There have been a lot of things that have happened in this country under this Trump, who's Putin's puppet, and all over the Epstein files, to the tune of 1 million times. There are things that none of us ever would have believed if you had told us 15 years ago, this is where we'd be in America. We'd think, no, it can't be that bad. It's not going to be that bad. No. That's what we'd be saying. And it's that bad. And it's worse than we ever could have imagined. And it's up to us to step in now because later will be too late. So I know that feels overwhelming to an individual. I live with that. I live with that feeling, and maybe you feel like you do too. I know you do. I can't, I don't know, just me? I can't, just me? No, well, then it's helpful to think about how many people in Minnesota came out to push back courageously, to fight back, to say, Mama Bear here, Mama Bears and Daddy Bears, uh. This is our state. This is our country. Not on our watch. You're not going to stay here and terrorize. And maybe some of the ICE and DHS agents left, but there's some still there. They're not all gone. Oh, Karen's informing us Drumpf means to fart in Bavaria. Yeah, I did a show on YouTube earlier with our friend Kathy Beale, and we were trying to look up what it means. Yes, our children are traumatized. Those of us who didn't grow up with shootings in our schools, those of us that didn't grow up with the fear of the devil really, just preached to us because kids were getting kidnapped or whatever. I didn't grow up with that. I'd be out doing whatever when I was that age, and it's like, just come home when the street lights go on, right? You guys remember that? And now this for these children. And now knowing that these children have borne witness to their classmates being disappeared. And now we have 3,800 or more. Who knows the exact statistic? Who knows who's even charting this? In these detention centers. Yeah, I had a childhood with no fear. That's definitely true. So, when it's like when you had it good or you have it good, it's human nature to the good people that have a moral compass naturally. Has a felons mafia squad ever shown up in red Texas or red Florida yet? Yeah, well, in Florida they have alligator Alcatraz, and in Texas there's Dilly. So with all this trauma happening to these children, and I've heard about 4,000 of them in detention centers. That means little children in conditions that are worse than a jail. If we're talking about anything else right now, as much as what's going on, and that's by design, to have so much going on in the news that we're just too all over the place, these times require a lot of focus. If we're overlooking that, where's our moral compass, right? I can't live with myself if it's not an option for me to say nothing, right? And I think that we all share that. I think it doesn't feel like it's an option for you to do nothing. We had it pretty good. When people that have a strong moral compass know that they have enough and they have maybe a little more to give, they have something to give, then those kinds of people do. And what we owe to these children is some semblance of feeling safe in their childhood, in their schools. I wrote an article about this, and it was with little Liam, the picture of little Liam. If you're all on my list, so you know the article. It was several weeks ago. before he and his father got released, but there's so many more still there. And what I cited was that we have failed our children. This country has failed its children. And once that starts happening, we're done. We're done. A society, a country that fails its children is a failed nation. Hands down, no argument. So it was bad enough with the school shootings that these MAGA Republicans refuse, and even prior to that, refuse to do anything about it except to say, well, let's give the teachers guns. That and now this. We cannot do it. And now Pam Blondie, I like to call her, gave us what we needed to see, apparently. The most horrifying hearing ever in American history, where she bombastically insulted and refused to answer questions and got real personal and real nasty. You know how Drumpf likes to say about female reporters or whatever, she's a nasty woman. That's what he said about Hillary. Nasty, nasty, nasty. Well, evil turns things around, flips things around, and he praised Blondie after that. Praised her. She did a wonderful job. No, we can't stand for this. Not on our watch will this continue. I don't have children of my own. And I don't know if I'd feel extra exponentially more strongly about this if I had children of my own. Likely I would, but it's pretty strong. I used to teach kids. I think every human that's normal loves children. Normal. Doesn't take much to be normal. Wanting a peaceful, loving world. Just wanting it. Yeah, no souls. These people have no souls. Something happened to these people that can perpetrate cruelty and evil and enjoy it. We don't know what happened to them, how they got so unnatural. But we cannot let these monsters build these concentration camps. We cannot. That will be too far. That is North Korea. Drumpf loves Kim Jong-un. He has a picture of him shaking his hand at Mar-a-Lago. He has a picture hanging up somewhere on the bar or something. And now he has a picture of himself with Putin in the Oval Office. Are we done yet? Have we had enough? So let's, in honor of Alexei Navalny, who lost his life, he was murdered by Putin. I knew that the minute I heard about it. And you probably did too. Tell the truth. He's there behind me. That's his book called Patriot. Tell the truth. Because I feel like he, from the spiritual dimension, is telling us that. And is telling us we can do this if we use our voices, if we're persistent, if we never let up. And that's what we're seeing in America. We're not letting up, just like chopping that tree. Chop, 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 chop. We have to shut this down. We have to shut them down. And failure to do so is simply not an option. Keep telling the truth. The truth is what sets us free. So don't shut up. I talked, was it yesterday or the day before, about self-expression? It was yesterday. Express, 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 and don't stop expressing. You will feel better that you're doing something. It's pretty torturous to sit and to pretend that we're powerless during these times. That's a worse torture. So hang in there. I'll be back tomorrow, and I'll try to give you a heads up at more like ahead of time. And those of you who do watch my YouTube channel, I think that's all of you here tonight. I will make a video and upload it very soon, in a little bit. Thank you. Pass the word. Share this if you can. If it was useful. And I'd like to say, namaste. Be good. See you.